Hello everyone. In our session today, we're going to be talking about the logging of DNS data, delegating administration in DNS, DNS recursion, and DNS Netmask Ordering. We're going to start by looking at DNS login. We're going to click on Tools, DNS. We want to right click on the server, the DNS server, and our DNS server is called DC, and select Properties. We want to select the Debug Login tab. So we click on the Debug Login tab. And we want to look at the different login options that we have. But we first must turn on debug login by clicking on log packets for debugging. And that we see we have a number of different types of packets, of different options. And when we turn on debugging, what we're doing is we are recording the packets sent and received by the DNS server, and we're logging those packets to a log file. Debugging is disabled by default. When you come to this window, you actually have to click Log Packets for debugging. Let us take a look at some of the options. As you can see here, when we turn on debugging, you can have a number of options ticked off already. Let us take a look at them. The first thing we want to look at is the direction of the packets. When we talk about packets that are sent, we mean packets sent by the DNS server. So any packet that the DNS server sends out will be logged in the DNS server file. Any packets that are received, once you have this tick by incoming, it means that those packets are going to be logged in the DNS log file. And then we have under that section, packet contents. You have your standard queries. Here, queries transfers. And that means that packets containing any standard queries would also be logged in the DNS server log file. Updates is the next one that is ticked off. And any packet containing dynamic updates are also logged in the DNS server file once you have that tick there. For your notifications, any packets containing notifications will be logged in the DNS server log file once that is ticked. Then on the right-hand side, you have your transport protocols, your transport communication protocols. You have UDP and you have TCP. And once those are ticked off, that means that the packets sent and received over UDP will be logged in the DNS server file. The same thing goes for TCP. If a packet is sent and the TCP protocol is used, then that packet is going to be logged in the DNS server. You have different types of packets. You have request packet and you have response packet. Request is when you make a request. Let's say you type in www.nationnews.com, then that is logged in the DNS server log file. Response is when the server responds to you with a response, and that response is also logged in the log file. You can also do filtering. You can filter packets, enable filtering based on an IP address. Let's click here on filter packets. And if we click on filter, you can see that you have an option here that you can add an IP address to the list by simply typing the IP address in the list box and clicking add. So any packet sent to or from the particular IP address that is listed here will be recorded in the DNS log file. Let's go ahead and cancel the box. Here you have the file name, and the file name lets you specify the name and location of the DNS server logs, and by default the DNS server log is saved in the system root system32 DNS directory. Want to click on OK to close the property box. Want to address DNS delegation. By DNS delegation, we mean we want to provide the ability for a user to manage the DNS server settings. You can do that two ways. We can do so using the security tab of the domain. So let's just expand here for lookup zone, expand Contoso. We want to right click on Contoso. We want to click on properties, and we want to click on security. Here you can see that we have the DNS Admin Group. There is a DNS Admin Group, and what you can do is that you can add users to this DNS Admin Group, because by default that group already has the necessary rights and permissions to administer the DNS server. But if you want to give another person or another group the ability to manage the content of the zones hosted on the server, and in this case we are at the contoso.com zone, what you can do is to add the person here. And remember that the rule is that you put the person in a group and you use that group. But for our lab assignment here, we're going to add a person. But remember, the best practice is to add a group. And we're going to look for Ben Smith. When I click on Advanced, Find Now. And here we have Ben Smith. We're going to click on Ben Smith. Click on OK. OK a second time. And we now see that Ben Smith has permission. By default, he has read permission. So we want to give him also write permission. So we click on write. Create all child objects. We want to give him that permission as well. We also give him the permission to delete all child objects. And let's go ahead and click on OK. So we have given Ben Smith permission to change the DNS server settings for that zone. We want to close DNS Manager here. We want to take a look at that DNS admin group that we talked about, the default group that has the necessary rights and permissions to administer the DNS server. Now remember, what we did just now is we went to a scope and we gave someone permission to administer the DNS settings for that scope. The DNS admin group will have the rights for all the scopes. So let's see if we can find that group. We're going to click on Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. And under the Users tab here, you can see that we have the DNS Admin Group here. And we want to right-click on the DNS Admin Group and click on Properties. And all we need to do is to click on the Members tab, and we can click Add, and we can add the group of persons that we would like to administer the DNS server settings. For example, again, we're going to pick Ben Smith just for the lab example. But remember, you should probably put people in a group and then add that group. That is the best practice. Click on OK to come out of that. We're going to click on Apply to come out of that. Next thing that we want to look at, the next two things really, is Recursion and Netmask Ordering. And to do that, we want to right-click on our DNS server. We want to click on Properties, and then we want to click on Advanced. Here's the Advanced tab. Let's look at Netmask Ordering. Let's scroll down to, no, we don't have to scroll down. We can see it right here. Enable Netmask Ordering. And that is there by default. What does that mean? Netmask Ordering is simply the order in which the addresses are looked at. Let us say that you have 3 DNS servers. All the DNS servers having the same data. If you have Netmask Ordering turned on, when you make a request, that request will go to the first server that is closest to your network than the other 2 servers. So if you have 3 CNN servers and you're in Barbados, and you have one in Miami, or even one here in Barbados, and you type CNN.com, then your request is going to go to the server that is closer to you. It will pick the record that's closer to you. Specifically, if the server is on your own network, it will give you that server so that it prevents you from going across the wide area network when there's a much closer resource nearby. We also have properties like round robin, and you can see round robin just there above Netmask Ordering. Round robin method will spread the work among multiple servers. If a resource resolves to 3 different machines, it will rotate the records that it gives out so that one machine does not get too much work. The first person that asks for the resource, let's say you typed in barbadostoday.bb, you will probably get server A. The second person that asks for barbadostoday.bb will get server B. The third person that asks for the resource will get server C. And so on. And the fourth person will go back to server A. The fifth person will go back to server B, and so on. That method is called round robin. And in that method, the work is spread around so that too much work is not put on one machine. Next, we have another option here at the top, disable recursion, which also disable forwarders. And recursion is if, for example, you wanted to reach a particular website and your local server does not have that information, does not have the address, then that local server is going to forward that information out, especially if you have a forwarder enabled. It would forward your request to another server that might have that address. If that server doesn't have it, it will forward the message to another server. You can disable recursion. The option to disable recursion is not on by default. If you want to disable recursion, you have to click here and say disable recursion. And if you do that, you're also going to disable your forwarders, any forwarders that you have configured. In this session, we talked about DNS logging, delegated administration, DNS recursion, and Netmask ordering. This is the end of our session, and I want to thank you for listening.